poem is about why AIDS is spreading so quickly in African Canadian communities. I stand before you to voice some hard truths, because too many black youths are victims of misinformation about AIDS that is causing them to make misguided decisions that affect their health. Our young people need to be empowered with the facts to protect themselves, because we live in a society where they aren't taught to respect themselves. So too many engage in practices that put them at risk. It's time for us to admit that silence about this is a sickness when statistics show that black women face the fastest growing rates of infection. But still, our governments are slow to take action, and news reports still give the impression that AIDS is an African disease. And so we fundraise for programs overseas while at home in our ghettos, HIV spreads like poverty. It's hard to face that in one of the wealthiest nations in the West, while AIDS rates drop among the rest, the percentages are increasing among black Canadians. And not many want to admit that discrimination determines which populations are the most affected. And so our attempts at prevention are often misdirected, as education campaigns often leave black folk unrepresented. It could be said that we suffer from a cultural disconnect where media campaigns don't understand our cultural context, and many times we send our youth conflicting messages about sex. Because too often, with the best intentions, our mothers tell our young black girls just don't do it, leading our youth to practice sex without protection. And the shy ones can't face the stress of buying condoms from the shelf, and widespread stigma means that many fear taking a blood test, and so fearing rejection from their partner, they don't confess. And too many black women and men are taught that sexual transgressions leave them condemned, but yet our human nature often yields to temptation. So believing themselves sinners, they have sex by stealth, too ashamed to take the proper preparation. And so fearing hell, they sentence themselves to death. And I know the Bible teaches that a man should not spend his seed, but we need solutions that deal with the realities of sexual activity if we want to stop the increase of this disease through our communities. And please remember that it was not too long ago that our black soldiers were being experimented on in Tuskegee, and with that in our history, many of our people fear the medical profession. And black bodies have so often been the objects of oppression that many avoid seeking medical attention. And ever since slavery, black men have been treated as sexually aggressive, and so many stereotypes affect our sexual expression. When black people were bred for strength from the plantation, and black women were subjected to sexual exploitation, and only a half-century past, black men could be lynched and castrated, and all of our media images still participate in representing black sexuality as degraded. So is it any surprise our young people have sex without safe expectations? And how do we teach them to value their lives when daily images of destruction are being paraded, when self-love can be our strongest antidote, but it seems so remote when videos only promote images of pimps and hoes? And it doesn't help the case when Tyler Perry and the Oprah Show spread the belief that AIDS is caused by men on the down low, so while the rates of infection among straight black women grow, sisters are convinced that they just don't need to know. So more and more infants are being exposed as the disease is transmitted through the placenta of mothers whose illness goes undiagnosed. And nobody wants to talk about the role of jails in spreading the infection through young black males, where widespread rape and drug addiction lead to conditions where AIDS is spread unchecked from cell to cell. And while the virus attacks your immune system cells, the victims are so ashamed they never tell, returning home to extend the disease to their wives and girlfriends, and so the cycle never ends. And as a country, our policies often lead to marginalization when our immigration system refuses entrance to those who test positive for infection, arguing that the cost of treatment is too excessive, and so the value of life is considered too expensive when compared to the price of medication. And these attitudes of stigmatization make their way throughout our civilization, so too many young people aren't provided with sex education. I tell you, I fear for our young generation whose information about sexuality is coming from friends who learn what they know from movies and TV. Because too often in our families and communities, when it comes to speaking about AIDS and HIV, our lips remain sealed. And so I have come before you to voice the truth, that before we lose more black youth, we must break our silence about these sexual taboos.